On the Judicial Portal, we have just resumed conversations with Juliana in this regard. I think I quickly hand over to Peter to kind of introduce this work and where we stand.
Sure. Thanks, Eva. So just a brief bit of context also for Angela I think you're all somewhat familiar with the Judicial Portal, but it's basically the portal itself is three elements, three pillars. So the first is the jurisprudence database. So that's totally public and that's live and that's being added to. The second is the network, which has two components. One is a directory where judges should be able to find each other and basically tag by keyword, etc. And a second is a forum where, in theory, then judges who are authenticated judge users, so it's not open to the public, neither of these are open to the public, would be able to have discussions on moderated topics. And then the third is a resources section, which is a place where we could put some of the resources from UNEP, but also from the GJIE. Also, so yes, this is, of course, a partnership with the Global Judicial Institute for the Environment. So some of the speeches they have, some of the addresses they have, video lectures, things like that. So it's a place that's a bit separate from Infomia. That's their own kind of home where they can store some of these resources, also print resources, reports, etc. So as I said, the jurisprudence section is totally live and is the section that's getting used now. The networking is kind of pending decisions from GJIE on who to actually admit. And so we revived that discussion recently with Juliana. And the resources also is large. It exists, it's public, but it's largely unpopulated. So the jurisprudence is around 400,000 cases. We also have some discussions to add new cases, one under agreement that gets revived every couple of years with the Savin Center as part of the revision of the report that they write with UNEP, and then they collect a number of cases. So that's one set, and then there's also a discussion, I think, with Su Young was originally on, and maybe with Angela, you were involved in this as well, actually, on a human rights database. So I'm not exactly sure where that would come from or what the modality would be, but that's something that could be in the near future. Pending issues, the main one is there was this list of requests that we had sent a number of times to the different people at GGIE, but especially to Judge Antonio Benjamin. And in particular, without going into the details, this is for them to come to a decision on the conditions for membership, because we can't start accepting requests to join this portal until we know exactly what conditions to apply and also who's going to apply them. From the discussions with Juliana, I think it's finally somewhat resolved that would be us, but I think that should be clear somehow in case it ever comes back to us. And then also the workflow for the input of jurisprudence. So the way that it's built is that you can be a content contributor on the UNEP side, or you can be a judge. And if you're a judge, you have access to the networking section. So I hope this isn't too much detail, Eva, but just to set the stage a bit for the coming work. If you're a judge, you have access to this networking section, but you can also submit cases. So hopefully you can submit your own cases or cases that you find interesting from your country. That then goes to a workflow process. So it's not automatically published, even though we trust the judges. They aren't necessarily like completely tech savvy and they could be missing some or misunderstanding some fields, whatever it is. If it's all good, then the content manager signs off on it. If it needs some work, then you liaise. So basically how that works, who is officially responsible, that needs to be validated, that people are getting the notifications, that people aren't sending cases that aren't getting picked up. So the planned work, yeah, so populate the resources, the imports, and then there's some small work on the glossary that has to do with improvements on pool parties, so that we can improve the glossary so that you get better results. So yeah, we need to go into detail there. Yeah, next steps on that are to determine the method of registration for GGI members. So this was, Juliana had mentioned that there's going to be a solicitation of membership through a different form to the judges, and we had discussed whether that makes sense just to do through email. But then if it is, then we should sort of tailor it to the different fields that we have. So for instance, topics of law that you're interested in, that the judge specializes in or has an interest in, or whether that should be done through our platform already, because then that kind of has a built-in content management and approval process. So that's ongoing. to solicit the additional resources. So eventually, when we're ready for them, to go to the judges and say, we're ready, please do send us your video lectures, your documents, whatever it is. And then the assignment and validation, yeah, basically already covered that, of the jurisprudence entry. So that also, because it hasn't really been live, that also needs to be tested, and we need to be clear within the law division who's ultimately responsible for that and who's responsible for assigning that work.